welcome to the cafe. Today I will be reading an original short story. It was requested by a Patreon supporter, and I thought it would make for a good, longer form reading as a kind of thank you for reaching 80 subs. This story lived on Patreon for a while, and now it's up on my AO3 with a bunch of other shorts in my longer, ongoing novel that you can find everything on my link tree. If I remember, I'll link my AO3 directly in this video, but I have to remember to do that. So we'll see. This short story is called Encounter Chemistry. The train was quiet as it rode through the pitch-black night. Elias had crept away from his seat to sneak a smoke. He leaned out the lavatory window, watching the smoke swiftly fade as it slipped from his lips. The train began to slow as it approached a stop. For a sleeper train to be stopping in the night wasn't that strange. Even if people weren't coming and going, perhaps some mail was being delivered. It wasn't his business what came and went under the cover of night. The train stopped for only a moment. The doors don't open, and he doesn't see anyone at the station. This, too, is none of his business. He returns to staring at the sky as the train sets off once again. The station's lights catch shadows moving atop the train. A number of these shadows lurk, seemingly getting ready to slip in when the moment is right. Now, this is too interesting for Elias to ignore. If they were up to anything good, they would have simply stepped onto the train. Crawling about its edges mark the rogues as trouble. They only move once the train was again bathed in the dark of a moonless night. Elias felt his heart begin to itch as he tried to control his excitement. What in the world were they up to? What fun was about to take place? Elias finished his smoke and quickly went back to his seat, trying to take note now of the passengers who were mostly asleep. He tucks his luggage beneath his feet, and half-lidding his eyes begins to fake his own rest. The lights of the train are dimmed after a time, going out completely. The shadows that creep into the compartment are skilled. Making no sound, they begin rifling through every bag and body. Elias stares freely in the dark, only faking sleep as the shadow gets close. When the shadow shifts in his direction, Elias slightly fidgets like an unsound sleep is close to waking him. The shadow takes no risk, skipping to the next row. The morning comes. The thieves have relieved many passengers of their possessions. Elias can barely hide his glee when he notices that there are a few new additions. The thieves never stop the train to get off. They have seamlessly blended in. No one pays much mind to those around them. The likelihood of them being noticed is slim. The crime is eventually reported, authorities waiting at the final stop. But the confused victims take too long to recognize their collective victimization. A few of the early morning stops led off the odd gaggle of tired and rushing folk. Elias watches intently. No doubt some of the thieves will get off with all their winnings. Elias can't contain himself and stops one group of these passengers as they attempt to slip out. He recognizes the silhouette of the one who cleared his train car. His companions all new faces without overnight baggage. The gang of men play polite at first, asking him to move out of their way. Elias smiles at them, asking what are the benefits of working by moonlight. The glares that follow are sharp enough to slit his throat. Instead of fear, Giddiness begins to boil over. Elias smiles at them, his grin nearly reaches his ears. Now the thieves feel a chill as they stare at the smiling man with no intention of moving, despite knowing they are criminals. The doors slide closed as the train moves onward. Most of the passengers eventually make their way to the front of the train, clamoring and complaining to the train employees. Elias and the four thieves have the back train car to themselves. The thieves at first threaten the madman, seemingly holding them back from escape, only to laugh and joke with them. No matter how brutal their words, laughter and an unnerving gleam in his eyes are all they get in response. The thieves aren't armed. They have never had to be to do this heist. The man that they outnumber seems like a dandy with a few screws loose. They could overpower him, but they hesitated too long to escape in time. All the goods were tossed out of the train to waiting comrades anyways. They have no proof on them. Better to not touch the weirdo who seems to be enjoying the sweat that collects at their brow. The train arrives to its final stop. Police await the rest of the passengers, getting their information as they get off. Many have places to be, though without their money, some can no longer get there. The ones that can leave, only a small group of victims trapped at the station remain. Any seemingly suspicious individuals are detained, any who report no items stolen, any without tickets or are not recognized by the train's staff are also kept behind. Elias, having been aware, had protected his own valuables, though he and the men who at most will be fined for getting on the train without tickets are all suspects. Elias is enjoying the play being put on for him. The four thieves might only be treated as train hoppers. He doesn't bother stifling his giggles. His strange behavior slowly settles him as the prime suspect in the eyes of the staff and the police. The head investigator is busily overviewing the reports of the suspects brought to him. The man is a bit taller than Elias, his hair neat. His long, angular face is set in a frown. He readjusts his glasses as he sits to investigate Elias. Still, he looks dorkier than authoritative. The others found him too unsettling and were drawing straws to try and avoid being the one to question him. The nerd in cop's clothing is called Kai. He interviews Elias himself, much to his staff's relief. Elias smirks to himself. The man radiates a bowl haircut energy, a rule-following stiff who's married to his work. Elias tells him the truth. The other cops he tried telling the story to didn't bother listening. Elias is surprised that Kai treats his account seriously, asking for clarification and putting up with the insults and ways he strays off topic. This odd trust in him catches Elias's attention. Like a cat who has been fed twice on accident, he begins to get excited again at this new twist. Even after he's finally released, he sticks around, trying to catch the conclusion of the story still in progress. Some of the other thieves have also crept in to wait around the station. When they see the man who was spotted blocking their allies' way of escape, they take the chance to drag him away, planning on roughing him up a bit to vent their aggravation. The smug lunatic acts like it's Christmas Day, managing to slip from their grasp a few times and deal the odd blow. Only when the thieves' beating gets boring does he grab the knife one of the thieves had concealed. The feral glee in the lunatic's eyes sends the thieves scattering, as if their every action was somehow incited for his entertainment. They had handed themselves over for slaughter. Elias is left alone to lament his torn shirt and the buttons that have abandoned him. His face is red and swollen. The thieves had only delivered a few hits and kicks. He'd been dealt slaps worse than this. His hair has been turned to a mess, falling into his face. Though it smarts, his face-splitting smirk doesn't fall as he leans against the wall. The sudden sound of footsteps. His ruined shirt is suddenly grabbed. Kai practically lifts him by the collar, dragging him back into the station and into an empty office. Kai shoves him on a desk before going into a cabinet and grabbing a first aid box. Elias, dazed by the turn of events, sits still. While he was still being held, the nerd had come around to unnecessarily clarify things a few times. The trust the Four Eyes seemed to have for him was odd, but he had a theory for that. There was an attraction between them, and the workaholic virgin was putting off addressing it until his little case was solved. Perhaps that's why the staff of the station hadn't chased him off after releasing him. Elias winced as the antiseptic was applied to his wounds. He tried to bat the offending hand away. Kai, seeing the troublemaker will stop at nothing from causing problems, calculates the best way to get him to behave. Kai grabs hold of the hand swatting at him. He puts the hand close to his own body. Hovering it inches from his torso, he lightly trails the hand around. The nerd has some impressive muscles under the uniform. Elias picks up what is going unsaid during this tour. If he tries to close the gap himself, he'll get nothing. If he behaves, maybe he can have it. Struck somewhat dumb by this new twist, Elias sits still as his injuries are treated. He then gives a description of the men who grabbed him, following the boring rules of the law. His attention begins to stray again. When one of the thieves who was caught walked by Kai's office, Elias smiles, getting ready to yell something at him. Kai grabs his hand, placing it on his thigh. Elias's mouth slowly shuts, his attention pulled away from the trouble he was eagerly about to start. The Chaos Gremlin's attention is successfully focused on tightly holding Kai's thigh, giving a few test squeezes as if appraising a fine fruit. The most trouble he attempts for the rest of the day is the odd kiss to Kai's neck. The shivers and breathless chiding provide him ample entertainment. The case takes a bit of overtime, but is wrapped up successfully. The thief ring had been successfully pulling off this heist across the country for years. One lone feral bastard stumbled into giving Kai's branch quite the big fish. But all Kai can think of after being teased all night is getting off the clock. Despite being bothered by Elias, Kai never allowed him to retract his touch, snatching the hand back anytime Elias removed it. Even when he had fallen asleep, their hands stayed linked. Kai was worried, even in his dreams, he'd start trouble. The late shift freed from their duties, all scattered to the winds. Kai's co-workers were too tired to even question why their boss had kept the weirdo contained in his own office, not even taking notice as he led the smiling wacko away. Elias was still somewhat pleasantly surprised when he was thrown into the handsome piggy's car. Kai pulls him into a hungry kiss the moment he gets into the car. Elias's hands finally allowed to grope and explore to their heart's content. He even gets in a few nibbles before Kai, seeming revived, pushes him off, buckles him in, and starts driving, aggravatingly staying within the speed limit. Kai tries to calm down his heart's rapid beating, his blush burning beautifully as the bite marks begin to bloom across his skin. Elias was surprisingly patient. He wondered where the dork was planning to be devoured. Imagining all the ways he was going to enjoy the meal to come, his smirk took on a gentle, lopsided curve. The door is always open.